Welcome to College Football Roundtable, your source for college football coverage, including major storylines,
playoffs,
can't miss game previews, and picks each week. Join your hosts, Dan, Rob, and Jordan at the roundtable for a show unlike anything else. As for Football presents the College Football Roundtable.
All right, we are live. We made it through another year of college football, and the University of Georgia stands on top of the mountain. Not a surprise there. We're here to recap the college football championship game, trying to answer some of the burning questions that we hope to get answered in the offseason. One of those questions we already got the answer to earlier this week, and that was, where does Sam Hartman end up? He ended up at Notre Dame for the 2023 season. There's a lot of other movements, but we'll get into that later in the show. What's up, Trash Talkers? Welcome back to the College Football Roundtable. Or if you prefer, you can just call it Ring Knocker Radio, but we have modified that again for this year, and we're now calling it 2 O's and an NCO. So we got two people already watching in the if you guys have any comments, feel free to jump in and say what's up. Let us know what you guys are doing and what you're talking about. I'm your host, Rob the Angry Colonel, calling out of the center of the universe here at Fort Bragg. We got Dano Ikabesa out of coastal Connecticut and Trigger Joe out of the home of the big house. How is it going today, guys?
Yo, man. Good. A little sad about how hard the Horned Frogs went down, and sadder still that college football is over. You know, what can you do? I got so busy this year with Azure football and just life that I feel like I personally took college football season for granted a little bit when we were in it. You know, and that sucks because now it's over. And, you know, I got to see Army play a bunch. But I didn't see as much of the regular college football as I might have wanted. So, you know, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, how about you?
No, I was exactly the same sentiments as Dano, you know, seeing the college football season, and it's always like a day of like diet morning or morning light where you're almost like grieving. But yeah, I love college football, so seeing it go is a bummer. And it would have been nice to see the Wolverines playing for a natty, and that's what I was really hoping for until I saw Georgia strut out of the tunnel last night. And now I'm glad somebody else took that whooping, because that wouldn't have ended well for anybody. Ohio State truly did give them the best game they had in the playoffs and pretty much all year. So,
yeah, I will agree with you on that one, Joe. But one of the other things that I want to talk about real quick is, how about the Penn State running their freaking wing tee during their bowl game? I thought that was super, super cool. I was like, whoa, this is like way throwback to like back when I was in high school running the wing tee, which is a great offense. Again, very, very deceptive. It kind of shades of the triple option before it became the triple option, you know, because then the wing bone or the wishbone evolved out of that, then going into the flex bone. But I really think that it was a good college bowl season. We'll kind of dive into the numbers by conference a little bit later. But hey, let me tell you, I don't know if the moment was too big for TCU last night, or if Georgia is that good, or a combination of the two. But like when you watch the way that TCU played against Michigan, like they were on a mission. And I think really it was one of those things, they just didn't know what they didn't know. You know what I mean? You had 5 players with bowl experience that are going into the game against Michigan, so they just outplayed them. You know, it was just a regular game to them. And then after that, you get to sit around for 10 days and listen to everybody tell you how great you are. And then all of a sudden you have to play the best team in the country. And I think legitimately that they just got too big for the moment. You know what I mean? I think Georgia was that good. And that's a great point from Dave Graves. Like, nobody's beating Georgia last night the way that they played. It was tremendous. But let's run down how we got to the championship game. Dano, let's talk about the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, man. The Horned Frogs started the season unranked. They're either the first or the second team to play for a national championship after starting unranked in the history of the current college football landscape, current, sort of way of figuring champions. First year coach Sonny Dike won the AP Coach of the Year. Previous stops were in California from 13 to 16, and then the Southern Methodist University from 18 to 2021. Overall head record as a head coach is 84-64. That is pretty damn good, especially, if you're not Alabama. TCU plays in the Big 12. That could be considered a tough strength of schedule. I think that think they played a bunch of good teams this year. They said sits at 8th, so that puts them just above Michigan. I don't know about that. Behind two of the other playoff teams, Georgia and OSU, coming in at number 2 and 3 respectively. And then friend of the show, Chris Vanini, said on Twitter that he thought TCU had the best season of any team that didn't actually win a championship this year. And I thought that was probably true. I mean, if you think about it, they come in with no expectations. People are picking them to finish at best 7th in the Big 12. They lose the Big 12 championship game. Obviously, they got smoked last night, but nobody had them getting half this far this season. And, think about this. Quarterback Max Duggan actually lost the starting job in preseason camp. So if the Horned Frogs' actual starting quarterback doesn't take a key entry early in the year, we never even see this team emerge. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about TCU's record, during the broadcast yesterday. They were 6-7 or 5-7 last year.
They five wins last year. Yeah.
Yeah. They were a middle of the road team with a good defense, and that was about it.
Yeah. So when you really think about it, man, that's pretty impressive. You look at the notable wins that they had. Of course, they beat Kansas when they were undefeated. They beat K-State, which was great the first time. They split basically with K-State. Oklahoma, which was pretty impressive. Oklahoma State, they put a whooping on them, and freaking West Virginia, West Virginia is a solid team, the old Big East. And then, of course, the bazooka fire drill against Baylor at the waning moments. I genuinely think, this is just my thought process, but I think for the most part, every college team needs to do that bazooka drill, because if you don't give the other opponent time to think about what they want to do or try and ice you, I think it's better for your team, because the kickers get inside their own head. And like Dan said on the preview show last week, you're kicking in front of 11 million people. Good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can
you imagine? The most I've ever competed in front of is maybe $2,000. And that was a lot. That was freaking deafening. And I can't even imagine 11 million. That's mind blowing.
Yeah. And that kid is a basket case, because Ruggles is he never missed a kick. And that's one of the other things. It's like I said, there's a kicker. That's my classmate who will not be named, but everybody knows who he is. That was Mr. Automatic for years, right? Never missed a kick. And then when we get into a bowl game against Auburn in the Independence Bowl, he misses. And that was what happens? Because sometimes the pressure of the situation, it could be the hold, it could be the wind, it could be any number of factors. It's a factorial problem. But at the end of the day, kickers.
I think kickers in that situation, they just get cranked a little too tight in that big game kick, and they're not swinging with their natural muscle memory. They're trying to force it, and so you get a kicker out of rhythm or something. I mean, that's you don't know where that ball is going, because they've got one way of doing things. You know what I mean? It's a muscle memory type thing, and they get a little ratcheted up by nerves, and percentages go down.
Yeah, and there's no way in HE double hockey sticks that Rob would ever be a kicker. No way. Because at least if you're a defensive guy, you got 10 other players on the field to kind of help you out if you miss.
Yeah.
But if you're the kicker, that's it, man. It's on you. Right, wrong, or indifferent, the outcome of that situation is on the kicker. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about Max Duggan. Keandre Miller didn't play last night, which was really, really hurts, and I think that kind of hurt the running game. Quentin Johnson never really got it going yesterday. Defensively, the Horned Frogs looked good, but I think the sugar huddle is what got them. You know what I mean? Because the way that they play defense is they need time to kind of do that pre-snap assessment, and they weren't getting that because the tempo that Georgia was throwing at them.
It was just the sheer athleticism. I mean, Georgia had that one play. It was 3rd and 10. TCU sends the max blitz. The defensive end actually gets back to the quarterback, maybe gets a hand on him, and you just see Stetson Bennett roll out of it and sprint out and get the first down with his legs. I was like, forget it. This game is over.
Yeah. Well, the other part of it, the other part of it is freaking doggone That's not very nice, Greg Anicelli. We know that's you. But I will tell you, the problem is the guys that actually ran into that play, like they just couldn't stop them because of the athleticism. And the other piece of it is like Stetson Bennett is old enough to get a discount on renting a car. You know what I mean? So you got to consider that part of it too. He is a grown man. He's a grown man playing a child's game. And like, sadly, I don't think there's some pro teams. I think the lowest ranking pro team probably would have lost to Georgia last night just based off of the way that they were executing. Nice.
Well, yeah, you get a quarterback that's comfortable in that system that puts a defense into a tempo offense, and he's a master at running tempo. Your defense has no chance. Not on that first drive, they don't, because all those plays are scripted. We all know the first 10 plays are scripted. You get a guy like Stetson Bennett to get you rushing to get to your spot on the field. Forget about it. Don't pull a hammy, son, because he's gonna score on you. That first drive, it's over with. So I'd run tempo. If I had the quarterback to do it, I would run tempo until he said, "Coach, I'm going to gas out." Yeah. Because it's the hardest thing to defend against when you've got a good quarterback that knows how to run a tempo offense.
Yeah, and that's fair. And since we're already talking about it, let's move on to University of Georgia. Joe, what do you got on these guys?
All right. Georgia ran the table, started one, finished one. Hats off. The Kirby Smart, another Nick Saban system coach. He's coached pretty much everywhere in the South, and he's been at Georgia since 2016. What do you have? The number 2 strength of schedule, and the Bulldogs said they definitely had their work cut out for them this season. But running the table in the SEC 2 times in back-to-back is one of the hardest things to do in college sports, period. So I commend them for that. Of course, their closest test was against Ohio State in the national semifinals, and that game was definitely a heck of a lot closer than people give it credit for. So. I think that's a testament and a prep as to OSU, like we called it. I'll give it to you since you're an OSU fan, but we both said OSU is going to play them tough. They've got enough NFL talent, and they did. So, notable players, front 7 on both sides of the ball were absolutely critical. You got Stetson Bennett, who's 37 years old. The 2 tight ends, Bowers and Washington, completely open up the passing game to where you cannot double a single wide out. But their running backs, running game is another 2-headed monster with McIntosh and Dejon Edwards, both combining for over 725 yards and 7 TDs minimum apiece. And then you had Kendall Milton, who had close to 607 scores himself. So the offense is solid. The defense is elite. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. But from everything I've heard, they've got a monster recruiting class coming.
Yeah. Well, the other part of it is like that was one of the big question marks in the Ohio State game too, was like, hey, why did they use Brock Bowers? Was he hurt? I don't know if there was anything going on. Like maybe he had an injury or something, because like by comparison to the Ohio State game, Georgia's team used their weapons a lot better, I think, in this game. And I think part of it is because of the preparation, because the coaches actually had a time to kind of scheme against what, TCU was doing. But the other part of it is a straight up like Brock Bowers is an athlete. That dude's a sophomore, right? So we got at least a year, maybe 2 of seeing that cat again. And go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Georgia's, what we were talking about this before that we came on, Georgia's been streaky all year. Like they go up against Kent State and let Kent State hang around for 3 quarters. They end up beating them by 15 points. It wasn't like the game was close, but if you catch Georgia on the right day, you can hang with them. You catch them on the wrong day and you get freaking smoked. And for whatever reason, I don't think that the Dogs had their best stuff against Ohio State, and they definitely emphatically had their best stuff last night. I mean, I don't think the layoff really helped them, but they're just like – they're not the super consistent team that you want them to be as a bunch of killers. Like I feel like Alabama plays more consistently, even though they weren't as good this year. Whereas Georgia, like they had highs and lows. They just never went low enough to actually lose a game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of it is the whole discussion of like preparedness. Like Kirby Smart, like I would have loved to be in that locker room as they're doing film analysis, because they dissected that defense. And, hats off to Todd Monken for calling the game that he called as the OC, because like they were creating space that just shouldn't have happened. Like who runs a freaking middle screen with a wide receiver? Like nobody.
I've got a better question. What didn't work?
Nothing. Everything worked.
What didn't work, boys?
They'd run a trap for 10 yards, like every time. It was great. I mean, just anything, inside handoff, 12 yards. Just
It's like, well, the triple option
What are you
flea
gonna do?
flicker with the backup sophomore quarterback didn't work, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well,
Everything
and
else,
we'll toss.
touchdown.
Yeah, we'll toss this out to the peanut gallery, but I think there was only 2 punts on the Georgia side. But what are you guys thinking about the offensive performance of Georgia last night? I think like that was truly one of the most high-powered offensive performance that I saw all season.
Yeah.
You know, and particularly from Georgia, it was just like, man, these guys can't stop. Like, and
Yeah.
the sad part of it is I don't think they let off the gas at all by any stretch. You know what I mean? Because they were just executing their offense. And again, it goes back to, this isn't like you playing NCAA, on a video game console and you run up the score because you're trying to showboat on your friends. It literally is them just executing an offense and they just couldn't stop them.
Yeah, it was like we've been waiting for them to break out and have that game a lot. And the only other time I didn't watch Georgia play every game, but the only other time I saw them look like that good was in the home game against Tennessee. That team did not show up every week, but when they showed up, they just crushed teams. Tennessee is a good team, and they smoked them. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. Is it possible with the talent gap that we saw last night? Is it possible that Georgia just got bored going into some games? I played on some teams where we were poorly coached, and you're going up against a team you're going to beat. Sometimes it's hard to get up for those games. So I don't know, maybe going into Mizzou, they were a little sleepy-eyed, like this isn't even exciting. And, I'm not saying that to knock on these teams that they had close games with, but their defense didn't play 37 points better against TCU than they did against Ohio State. You know what I mean? I think some games you're just a little more up for. I mean, after what Michigan did to Ohio State, I don't think Georgia was really worried about them. And that's why I thought Ohio State had a better chance, because I do agree that they probably played better against TCU, but not 35 points on defense better. I feel like
That's fair. Well, and here we are. So Georgia won all of its games, is making the SEC the conference to beat again. They are in the driver's seat, and it sucks because the last 4 college football playoff winners have come from the SEC. So you've got LSU, you got Bama, and then now you have Georgia twice. It is insane, the depth in the SEC. And then the other part of it is like, hey, look, we watch these football contests week after week after week, hoping to see some improvement. And now with all the conference realignment, how does the SEC look? You know what I mean? Like you've got the Texas conference is now collapsing because everybody is leaving to go to the SEC. Then you've got, the Pac-12 is moving. You got UCLA, you got USC that are going into the Big 12. I personally think that is a horrible move, but that's my thoughts.
I don't really like it either, Conrad. To be honest with you, what are you going to tell a kid that wants to play at Southern Cal? Like, hey, man, y'all fired up to go play this game Halloween weekend in Iowa? Like, no, I'm not at all. For any reason, coach. I'm from Los Angeles. I don't want to go, I think that's going to hurt recruiting a little bit.
Yeah.
I think
who knows?
Some of these teams are signing up to get curb stomped by Arkansas, every year for the next 5.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And Arkansas is also ran in the SEC, but I guarantee you they will put the whooping on some of these teams. And the other part of it is like, hey, Lincoln Riley, you better start studying up on how to, or find a damn good defensive coordinator, because you cannot play Pac-12 defense in the Big Ten. Like,
sure he can. Let him try. Give him a chance.
Like you're gonna see some scoring records broken because it's gonna be a race to 1,000 points in both of those things. And like I said, I think
got to highlight David Graves' comment here as a UCLA fan. Yes, we exist. Growing up, I don't like UCLA going to the Big Ten either. What a world! I mean, we have the only UCLA college football fan here. And how weird was it that they played the game in Los Angeles? I mean, stadium's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but oof.
Yeah. And I think that's a true statement too. What Brendan Jones just said: the money whoring in FBS shows no bounds. They stand by tradition until they can get another nickel, and that's true. But again, that I think that's partially why the playoff expansion has happened, because we're starting to see parity, at least in the playoff, right? So when a team like TCU can come out of nowhere and make it to the national championship, like granted they laid an egg, however, I don't think it was well. I can't even see that they laid an egg. They just got outplayed by a much better team, but. Well, if you expand the playoff, then you get much more compelling contests like that. So you can have an Ohio State Georgia contest that's pretty compelling, but that's like 4 to 6 weeks out from the national championship. So that makes it that much more interesting, at least to watch. But the reality of it is about asses and seats. And I don't know if you like. I saw another guy on YouTube. He was talking about ticket prices, and one of the things that they said was ticket prices fell by like by 60%. When TCU won. So like the lowest, like your top tier seating was like $1,200 for the nosebleed seats. And that was before any of the playoff games happened. And then when Ohio State played it close, everybody was kind of happy. When Michigan lost to TCU, then you saw the numbers drop off significantly. So the tickets went from like $1,300 to $400. And the reason why that
TCU is a tiny school comparatively. I mean, Michigan's got 50,000 kids. TCU's got like 10,000, 12,000, something like that.
Yeah, they did a bunch of comparisons during the game of how much, the discrepancy in the size was. And it's like, honestly, towards the third quarter, it felt like, here, Michigan fans, this is how this David is whooping Goliath's ass again. They're this small, you're this big. It was just like, all right, dude, we get it. But no, they definitely are a smaller school.
And I think that really does impact the game. But and back to the conferences, we'll dive back in right here. So if you look at the final tally of the season, the American Conference went 4-3, and again, that's going to be completely restructured. So we just don't know how they're going to look next year. The ACC went 5-4. The Big 12 went 2-6, but they did have one team make it to the Natty. Big 10 went 5-4. Conference USA went 3-3. Independence went 3-2. The MAC went 4-2. Mountain West went 3-4. Pac-12 went 3-4, and the SEC went 6-5. Sun Belt went 3-4. To be completely honest, I legitimately think that the Group of 5 conferences did better in the bowl games. Like, hey, let's talk about Tulane putting it on freaking USC right now. Granted, like there are some serious like tactical errors. Like, look, you never fair catch when you're that close to the sidelines. Just let the ball go out of bounds. Like either it bounces and goes out of bounds and you get a penalty, or it rolls into the end zone and you get a touchback. But that kid made a crucial error that really changed the face of the game. However, you still got to play all facets of the game. And again, this goes back, and this is the thing that sticks into my craw before we dive into Joe's Blue Falcon of the week. But this sticks into my craw. How in the HE double hockey sticks did Caleb Williams win the Heisman? Now, it's even more marred because not only did you lose 2 to the same team, but then you lost to Tulane in a bowl game, which for all other intents and purposes, like even if you watch college football and you're a deep diehard Tulane fan, like there is no way that Tulane should have ever been on the same field as USC, let alone beating them. And maybe
Tulane's defense was not exactly holding up for most of that game. Tajay Spears, that's our running back's name, right? I mean, It was like the Tajay Spears show versus USC. Okay, that's fine. Spears is a good player, but that Tulane defense was not exactly holding up. And if they hadn't gotten that safety off that weird kickoff, like USC was going to win that game. I mean, the only thing you can't do in that situation is take a safety. That was awful. I mean, that was awful.
I mean, just throw the ball away. Just throw the ball away. But he's a Heisman Trophy winner, man. Like he is the best quarterback in college football. Like it drives me crazy. And legitimately, I think they gave him the damn diversity vote because he's got freaking dreads in his hair and he paints his freaking fingernails.
That's something to think about. That could have been it. But I tell you what, I'm a Tulane fan rolling into next year. They did not prove me wrong once this year. Love that green wave.
Yeah. All right. So we know who Joe's going to be rooting for when he's not watching Michigan. All right. Now let's move on to the Blue Falcon of the week. Do you have somebody in mind, Joe?
Yes. All right, football gods. Remember that this is of the week. I haven't forgotten what this man has done for the culture. But it's Jim Harbaugh, man. Stop taking NFL interviews in the middle of recruiting season. Stop it. You're 17th in recruiting after going to the Final Four in football 2 years in a row. That's unheard of. You're like 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten East right now. Kids aren't coming to go to Michigan that are 5 stars if they think the coach is going to be coaching the Broncos next week. Like, I don't care who's got to pull their pocketbook out. Stephen Ross went to school here. I mean, for crying out loud, we had a president go here. Darth Vader went to Michigan. That's right, James Earl Jones. Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports. Somebody pull their pocketbook out and sign Harbaugh to a contract that says no more NFL interviews, not during recruiting season, because you're going to give Trigger Joe a heart attack. But for this week, that's 2. We did 2 interviews with the Panthers and the Broncos. So for this week, it's Harbaugh for doing that during recruiting season, because if you're a mother who's very protective of your son and one coach might be leaving and one coach might, it's a really easy decision. Michigan's going to lose out on that recruit. So there it is. Can you tell it got me triggered? It's a little close to the heart. Sorry, fellas, if I got a little animated on that one. But, man, it drives me nuts because it's right all over ESPN. It's almost like they might as well say, hey, Joe, Harbaugh took another NFL. That's what the story feels like. It's like they're saying it to me because when he goes and does an interview, that's first headlines. It's the first one I see. Oh, he sat down with another NFL team. Cool. Would we lose 4 or 5 stars out of that? All right, no big deal. Hope it went well. Like, the Minnesota one. Go ahead.
They got him going to the Panthers, right? That's the latest thing I think I've seen. I don't follow.
He did the Broncos interview after that.
So, yeah, he did. Okay. He did the Broncos and the Panthers, and there's one other team that was out there. I forget which one it is, but this is all I'm going to say. This is Ryan Day like this every time. Come on. He's like, come on now.
He's almost got his whoopee pulled down over. Like, is he still there? He's still there. He's leaving. All right, let me know.
Yeah, I legitimately.
I just had to take a jab at Buckeyes on that one.
Yeah, I legitimately think that one's coming, man. Either way, like if Harbaugh leaves,
yes, it is.
I think it's just a matter. Well, I think really what
anybody remember Brady Hoke? Anybody remember Rich Rodriguez? Huh? Somebody pull out a check and sign him now. I'm 42 years old. I can't go through another period in my life like that. I don't have a lot of hair left.
Yeah. I legitimately think it's a culture change for Harbaugh to stay there. You know what I mean? Like they already made him take a pay cut. He's got a whole bunch of younger coaches along the staff with him. So I think can he still connect with the players? And I think if he still has the ability to connect with the players and coach, I think he's good. But I think really, and we have talked about this and we texted back and forth about, he doesn't have to recruit when he goes to the NFL.
Yeah, right.
And that's a very significant portion of his time as a coach that he could be spend doing something else. And not to say that, he goes to every, athlete's house, because you probably get position coaches or assistant coaches or whatnot. But at the end of the day, to have Jim Harbaugh walk into your living room and say, hey, look, your son would look good in maize and blue. You should probably come to Michigan. Like that Brees will, like if I was a high school kid, like I would seriously consider it so long as he's still there as the coach.
Exactly. That's it's a great story about Mike Tomlin and Ryan Clark. Did you see that story when Ryan Clark wanted to come back and he had 4 or 5 doctors? Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, for anyone listening that doesn't know who Mike Tomlin is, but he was sitting there and Ryan Clark had a bunch of doctors say, I can go, I can play. And of course, like Ronnie Lott cut my finger off. I want to go back in the game. Tomlin said my obligation in that moment was to protect you from yourself. And even a pro coach is like a father figure. So a college coach is definitely like a father figure because these are kids we're talking about. Yeah. And you're not just going to change my father figure's face and name and likeness and me to go, oh yeah, I'll still blindly walk into that as a leap of faith. You can't even ask a kid to do that. So I understand the recruits leaving if he's not going to be there. And I fully expect it. That's why I want someone to sign him so he stays. You ain't going to replace him.
David Graves asked, wasn't that for a game in Denver? I got to be honest, I have no idea, so I figured I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. All right, so Dano, you got a note here in the outline.
Yeah, well, as long as we're talking about the pros, I just want to talk a little bit about Max Duggan, who was like the hero through the back half of the season, right? He's already declared for the draft. Apparently, he had this conversation with the Cowboys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're probably going to go on day 3." So first off, I'm scratching my head there because as a day 3 draft pick, he might be able to make that much money through NIL at TCU, like probably. Anyway. He's 6'2", he's 210, 4-year starter, 25 and 18 overall in that time with 2 truly outstanding seasons, almost a 64% completion percentage passer in the last 2 years, 32 touchdowns versus 8 interceptions this year. I don't think anyone thinks TCU was getting anywhere near this game without Max Duggan under center. What does this guy have to do to get into the top 3 rounds the first 2 days of the draft? Like, I can see taking Bryce Young ahead of Max Duggan. Can see taking C.J. Stroud. I thought Stroud played very well against Georgia, better than Duggan did. I could even see taking Stetson Bennett ahead of Duggan, although I'd be a little concerned about Bennett's age as a pro team because I don't know how much longevity he's got there. But that's another thing. But like some of these other guys, they had Kentucky's quarterback, like that dude is supposed to be better than Max Duggan. Like, yeah, I don't know about that. And even with Hendon Hooker, who's amazing, projected in 3rd round, like he's coming off that knee injury. You don't know what he's going to look like coming back from that. And, I think what Duggan did is at least comparable to what Hooker did with much less supporting cast. So, if I'm a Giants fan, you guys know that. So if the Giants put the franchise tag on Daniel Jones, then like to me, Duggan is a 3rd round pick that you take to sit behind Jones, and who knows what's going to happen. Like they didn't pick up his 5th year option. So franchise tag is pretty freaking expensive for Daniel Jones, man.
I'll take him in Honolulu blue all day long.
Yeah.
Lions got a ton of draft picks this year.
David Graves says his passing accuracy wasn't good enough. He missed a lot of open receivers. I don't know, man. 64% completion percentage is pretty freaking good. I mean, I understand like missing open receivers is not ideal, especially in the pros, but 64% is 64%. Like that's pretty good on just bottom line.
Yeah, and the other thing is you kind of have to look at the way the offenses are being run in the NFL now, right? So we're getting more closely to replicate.
To change quarterbacks again.
We're moving way closer. Yeah, you're fine. We're moving way closer to more RPO style offenses, and so a guy like Max Duggan is probably more useful to certain teams than he would be as like your typical drop back passer that we traditionally grew up with. He's not an Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. He's more of a Lamar Jackson, maybe less athletic, but he's definitely durable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that evolution in the game is starting to reshape how these players are looked at, because like there's a ton of talented quarterbacks this year. And again, like you just never know how they're going to pan out, because a few years ago, somebody told us that Johnny Manziel was going to be good. Right. And so where is he now? Yeah, the XFL.
You washed my car Saturday. There's a place that just opened. But to answer Dano's question, though, about what he's got to do to jump ahead of those guys, if he has a really good pro day, because every guy with a 8-figure check to write to a quarterback is going to send their best quarterback scout to his pro day. And if he outshines those guys, I got him ahead of Stetson Bennett.
No,
I'm sorry.
Come on. Seriously?
Yeah. No, I got Max. I'll take Max Duggan ahead of Stetson Bennett as a pro. And I'm telling the reason why, the guy runs a 21 flat 200 meters. I've only ran against one man that ran a 21 flat 200 meters. And let me tell you, that's flying fast. He's way more athletic than people give him credit for. I'm telling you,
Greg agrees with you. I think you're smoking crack, but that's fine.
We said it ahead of time. Where is TCU without him?
No, that's true.
Bennett out of Georgia, and they're going to plug and play and probably be in the SEC championship anyways. That's just my opinion. You do that to TCU, and who knows if they lose 2 or 3 games. Baylor.
You got to think. You got to think about the contributions in the other aspects of the game. So, for example, like when you look at Stetson Bennett wasn't getting it done with his legs, but he also had a crew of running backs with 7 touchdowns apiece, right? So he threw 38 touchdowns, or 37 touchdowns, but he also had a running game that contributed 21 touchdowns to that team. Whereas Max Duggan didn't have that same level of support in the running game. Right. So when you look at,
they have a bunch of jobbers out there though. Like they got some decent running backs.
Quentin Johnson, and they had a good running game. But here's the best way I think that I can clarify my point is put Stetson Bennett in a TCU uniform and put Max Duggan in a Georgia uniform. Do both teams end up in the same place? And my answer is Georgia, yes. TCU, probably not.
So supposedly Stetson Bennett had an offer from Louisiana that he almost took coming out of whatever his JUCO was that he went after that JUCO year. Imagine Stetson Bennett at Louisiana. Like we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah,
that's wild.
True.
Yeah.
But I mean when I think about prolific college football quarterbacks, man, you want the guys that can lead, that can game change, and it's like who do you want in the situation? Like I personally, looking at the landscape of college football, like CJ Stroud, super talented athlete. I don't want him under the gun. Like, absolutely not. If I'm down by a touchdown with 2 to 3 minutes on the clock, absolutely not. I don't want CJ Stroud lead my team. I don't want.
I'm telling you who I'm taking, because you can get him at a discount because he had that horrible injury. But I'm taking Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
Well,
they got
to
go in.
You're going to get him late, and you're going to get him cheap.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
why not?
They're talking about him going in the third, and I think he had a good chance of being in the top 5, probably in the high second at the latest without that injury. So that's
Look
probably
at him
true.
Healthy against Alabama. I mean,
that dude. Well, and the other part of it is based off of the team that drafts them is what's their expectation to play that first season. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these teams are now like playing for the long game. And so if they're playing for the long game, like, yeah, I could spend a first or second round draft pick to get Hendon Hooker if I know he's going to sit on the bench for a year or do some cleanup time or whatever to make sure that he heals up properly. Because I think like that's a steal, because if everybody else is going, third round, maybe early fourth, like he might be the guy that gets picked up. But like it's so hard to tell because you just don't know what direction the teams are going. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that makes it, the big question mark. And of course, the other part of it is like we got these these guys got freaking walkers in college because they're so damn old playing quarterback.
Yeah.
We like the whole extra year COVID eligibility is a pain in the butt. And I will be glad when it's over, just because like these guys, I get it for name, image, and likeness. You're perpetuating your future by collecting all this cash, but you're hurting your potential opportunity in the pros by sitting back and trying to stay in college, because the difference could be one play. Like in Hendon Hooker's case, it absolutely was.
So there's fewer scholarships now for younger players because older players are hanging out, eating up the money, and that's not fair. Like you're just sort of shifting things around a little bit. Like there's not an infinite number of starting spots, even in college. Like there's more, obviously, and I would say everybody at a certain level is probably going to get an opportunity somewhere, but it's crazy that dudes are just like hanging out, because if you've been in college for 6 years, then that's like up to 2 years of their time that you just took.
Yeah,
you're in there for 6.
And your ass best have a master's degree and not some underwater basket weaving or elementary communications or some goofy shit like that, because it's like, look, you're wasting your time and marketability. Vice the guys like, and I'll use Larry Fitzgerald as the example of the dude that still pursued his degree while he was a player. A
lot of guys do that. Yeah,
that's you know what
uncommon.
I mean.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is to have that opportunity to continue to do that. Like you could still do that as a pro, whether you play 4 years in college, 3 years in college, whatever. And it's just prudent to do. It's like it's hedging your bets in case you get an injury or something crazy like that.
I mean, I told my own daughter that when she was talking about potentially taking a year off. I was like, look, college is not going anywhere. You want to get a job? Like, get a job. I don't care. It's fine.
I think with that NIL, I think the bonus to the actual community and to the contributions that these young athletes can make, I do believe they're showing them and making a stronger version of themselves than they normally would, because they understand their value. They understand how to market themselves. They understand that maybe football can be a springboard to get my foot in the door at other places, just like as a veteran. Sure, I'll use that tag to get my foot in the door, and then we'll judge on meritocracy after that. But I think it's a really great tool to show these guys that, hey, you can make some money outside of the arena of football in case you do blow a knee out or something like that. You're not in a terrible position, and you understand the business world a little bit better.
Yeah, and I know, like I said, I talked to Ron Moses, who's like the VP for player management at Old Dominion University about a year ago when NIL first came out. And one of the things that he talked about was how they built it into their business curriculum. So like, hey, look, if you're going to do NIL, we're going to grade you on how well you manage your money or how well you manage your likeness. And so basically it's a business degree. So that's your capstone event as you're leaving school. You're getting marks on how much you were able to generate fund-wise. And that's tangible. You know what I mean? It's not subjective.
Yeah, that matters.
It's not like, it's not like, I don't know. I think he did okay. Like, no, this kid made freaking $600,000 selling Snapple and t-shirts or whatever versus, the other alternative, which is, keeping this stuff under wraps where the kids weren't, able to take advantage of it. And like I said, I personally think I understand the reason why NIL happened is because when you look at the NCAA numbers before COVID, they were making like $936 million. It is a nonprofit organization. How do you make $936 million if you're a nonprofit? And if you are, where is that money going? Where is it being directed to? Why? Who's skimming off the top? Because $936 million is basically $1 billion. So where do the other $64 million go? Like, that's my question.
Right.
But we'll throw it out there. Comments from the Peanut Gallery, man. We like having you guys on here. I think this is pretty cool getting to have the interaction with you guys. Any comments, anything that you want to get some final thoughts on before we kind of wrap this thing up and close out the show? And the Firsty Club is silent, but
for the first time ever.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just wanted to highlight a couple quick before we get off the air. And this is the college, but don't be afraid to jump onto the Ask for Football website and explore Ask for Lax and Ask for Baseball. So Dano and James are going to be covering baseball and Lax in the winter spring timeframe. The Army men's team dropped a close one last night to Colgate, 77-75 in Patriot League play, which really, really sucks. The women's basketball team is currently 8th in the Patriot League, and they lost to the Colgate women's basketball team 65-52. There's still a lot of play to go, but Army has their work cut out for them because
they're struggling. The women are struggling.
Yeah, the Patriot League has always been tough for Army, and it's hit or miss, like with the women's team, and I still have never understood that the entire time, watching basketball at school, both men and women's, just getting over the hump. And Colgate has always been a habitual thorn in the Black Knight side, particularly when it comes to, Army basketball play. And then one final note that I have to have, and I put this in here just last minute because, again, like, there are some damn unsung heroes out there. So your athletic trainers, man, like, if you have an athletic trainer in your life, give them a smack on the back and say thank you, because Eric Huss had a pretty scary injury over the weekend during the hockey game. Got a freaking skate across the neck, which is crazy.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, and Rachel Leahy, who is the athletic trainer, she basically jumped across the boards, patched this kid up, and basically held him together long enough to get life-saving care, which, like, he could have bled out very, very easily. And she literally saved his life. And Huss is back at the academy today, so he's back. I don't know if he's going to be playing anytime soon, but I mean, to have something of that significant happen, and not end up poorly is great. And, hat tip to her, because I think that was a really great opportunity for her to step up and show, the necessity. And, like, she graduated in 2016. So that makes, she's like just under 30 years old, and she's not a soldier. And for somebody to be able to react in a moment like that, that takes some really good training and it's a really great reaction. So I really appreciate her efforts. And again, stay on top of all the rest of the Army sports. You can go to the Army West Point website. That'll have all the listings of what's currently going on, what's televised, and everything else. In between those times when you're going to the Ask for Football website and checking out the articles that Dano and James are writing. But
so
again,
we got a question about predictions. I just real quick, the lacrosse team has definitely got to be in rebuilding mode after graduating a bunch of really good seniors last year. I think baseball has a decent chance to repeat as Patriot League champs. I mean, that's like a machine over there, although they got a new coach. We'll see how it goes. But I mean, who knows? Last time I thought lacrosse was going to be rebuilding. They actually made it to the national tournament, the championship tournament. So crazy things do happen, and they've been recruiting very well. But anyway, as far as predictions go, just want to drop that in there. Sorry, Rob, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. And then we got a late comment from Ray. Anybody watching the Coach Prime show? Yes, I'm watching it. I absolutely love it. I think I am a firm believer in Coach Prime. I was, believe it or not, before I even started watching Army football religiously, I was a Colorado Buffaloes fan for many, 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 many years. And, I used to like them because of the talent, the offense that they ran, the way that they were able to win. Like Colorado was one of the only teams in the country that could compete with Notre Dame when Rocket Ismail was playing, for those of you guys that are old enough to remember that. And
I am
bringing Coach Prime to UC Boulder, like culture shock for all parties involved, I'm sure, because he's a way different guy. He's a Southern dude. That's just the way that he is. Coach Prime has some swag. And if you are not watching that show, like if you watch anything, there's two things that you need to watch. So there's a YouTube series that came out around 2016 called I Believe. And that's actually the Colorado, like the year that Colorado went like 10-2. That's a great series to watch, because they were talking about how the team kind of built itself up to get to that point where they were winning. But then the other part of it is watching Coach Prime interact with his players. And like that whole coaching staff, like I would go play for those dudes right now, and I'm almost 50. Like if they were like, "Hey, suit up," I'd be like out there, regardless of who it was, because all those cats were pretty awesome coaches. And I hope that some of those guys get opportunities because he left. But I also think, his opportunity in Colorado is going to be huge.
Yeah.
And, the other part of it is it kind of puts him in the driver's seat. Like if he recruits well, like Colorado could win the Pac-12 in a year or two, just because of the restructuring of the league. Right. Yeah. And like, that's something that we're not even talking about. And so like with the playoff expansion, like don't be surprised to see them in 2024, 2025 playing in the playoff. And hey, look, say what you want about Dion bringing his kid with him in the transfer portal, but Shedeur Sanders, like that kid's a stud.
Yeah. Why would he not bring him? Isn't he like a 4 or 5 star?
You ain't playing for Coach Prime unless you got the stuff. That's all there is to it. I don't care if you're his flesh and blood or not. He definitely ain't gonna put that kid on Front Street to get blasted in front of the nation if he doesn't have the talent. I think he believes in his son. And I'll give you a prediction for next year. Colorado goes to a bowl game, and within 3 years plays for the Pac-10 championship or Pac-12 championship. Within 3. He's going to bring a culture change. He's going to bring respect back to that Colorado name, and maybe wake up a sleeping giant like Nebraska was supposed to do when they came to the Big Ten. Even though they're still snoozing, they're taking a pretty long nap. But I think Colorado will. Definitely, they're going to be a power to be reckoned with very soon. I believe the turnaround will be quick.
Yeah, and I think, and legitimately, the other part of it is, and honestly, I think after watching the Prime series and then watching kind of all the fallout from him leaving, bottom line is like he went to a place where he knew he was going to get support. He knew where the university was going to put the time, energy, and effort into the players as well as the team. And I think that legitimately was the problem. Like part of the reason why he left, like, hey, he says it multiple times. I love Jackson State University. I love these kids. I love these players. I love the culture, everything about it. However, one thing that he didn't like was watching those numbers and his, checkbook go down because he's paying for bottled water for his team. Hotels for his team, redesign of the locker room, like all the things that he paid out of pocket to make happen because the university wasn't supporting. I guarantee you he has that at Colorado and then some. I will pause.
He's still paying.
Yeah,
because of an obligation that he incurred by telling them that he'd help with their training facility upgrades. He's still paying. And that's the thing about Coach Prime is that, like, if you're not a believer, just follow him for a little bit. Show me a chink in his armor where he's full of you-know-what or a gimmick. He's not. He's different. That's for sure. He's not your cookie-cutter standard coach, but that dude commands respect. And he's going to make sure his teams command respect. I think it's going to be amazing to see what he does at Colorado, because you're right, Colonel Rob, he's going to have the checkbook backing him up.
Yeah, and ultimately now in the days of NIL, guess what? The checkbook is a weapon, as far as developing your team. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to that fact, for a fact, like, even the controversy with Nick Saban talking about JSU, and like that's in the first episode of the Prime show. And Prime was like, Nick Saban's my guy, man. I'll just go talk to him about it. And like they're shooting an Aflac commercial and they're sitting in the trailer and they have a conversation. And Coach Saban is like, you know what I meant? Yeah, I understand, because I know you, because we have these conversations. We talk as professionals about our respective universities, and I get it. And at the end of the day, these coaches, like there are going to be some schools, like think of this, and this is the most mind-blowing thing, and then I will close the show when I think about this. But like, look at it this way. There are players right now in college football that have the earning potential to make more money than their coach.
Wow. That's crazy.
Due to name, image, and likeness. Just think of it that way, right? And that's in all sports. That's not just in football, but that's in all sports in the NCAA that are sanctioned. And so when you think of it from that perspective, as a coach, you have to bring more to the table. So you have to bring the mentorship. You have to bring the leadership. You have to bring that culture and that lifestyle to get those kids ready. And one of the things that Deion Sanders says, and he said in the most recent episode, because Anquan Bolden from NFL fame, his son is playing for Jackson State. And one of the things that he said is like, this kid is got an NFL checkbook. He's just waiting to sign it. He just doesn't realize his potential yet. And so to have a coach with the caliber of Coach Deion as a athlete to say, hey, look, this guy has an ultimate potential to do big things in the pros, that shows a strong belief in the kid. And like, who doesn't believe that? Like if your coach told you like, you can play in the NFL, you're going to make it to the Olympics, you're going to be the next big thing in your respective sport, who doesn't want to follow a guy like that? Particularly if you know their acumen and whether or not it's true. Yep. All that being said, we'll go one last time around the horn. Joe, any last final thoughts before we close this thing out and we go into slumber for the next 10 years?
Hang on tight, gentlemen, to August. It will be here soon. I know the other sports aren't the same, but there'll be enough. It'll get us through. And anybody listening with a checkbook in the Michigan community, sign that, man, so I don't lose any more hair, please. For the love of God, go blue. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to do more shows with you, gentlemen. But this has been a blast.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Dano, how about you?
I just need some snow, man. I'm fine. Like college football is great. It's ski season, and then we got open water swimming season, and then we'll roll right back into football. Like to everything its place, but we need a little snow. It's a little bit too damn warm in the Northeast right now.
Yeah. All right. And I have no other comments. I think I left the point to ponder for the offseason is figuring out how many players actually make more money than their coach. So that'll be interesting research project to deep dive in the offseason to see what happens. I can almost assure you that it's happening in a lot of the Title IX sports, because those gals can market themselves a hell of a lot better than some of their counterparts, I guess would be the right way to say it. However, for the last college football roundtable of the 2022-2023 season, I am Rob, the Angry Colonel, coming to you out of the center of the universe. We've got Dano Ikebesa coming out of coastal Connecticut, and everybody's favorite, the NCO of the two O's and an NCO, Trigger Joe, out of the home of the big house. And we thank you guys for checking us out, and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks.
Beat Navy.
Beat them. Thanks for listening to the Ask for Football College Football Roundtable. Tune in next week as the AFF team brings you more hot takes and college football analysis. We'd like to thank our sponsor, BuyerBarn.com. BuyerBarn.com is the world's first platform to perform online auctions and sales for farm animals. BuyerBarn.com is dedicated to helping small farmers in America and are extending a special discount to military veterans who want to help in the revolution of the family farm. Go to BuyerBarn.com/AFF ByreBarn.com/military. That's ByreBarn.com, ByreBarn.com to learn more and to get started, or email them at info@ByreBarn.com. Thanks again for listening to As for Football, College Football Roundtable, and as always, beat Navy.